So today we are going to discuss circular solutions for beverage containers, and this webinar is part of our series of webinars which we have started this year, namely Deep Dive European DRS. It is also the first webinar in the series Circular Plastic Now. And the story and the idea of this Circular Plastic Now series was born in at the session Intergovernmental session negotiation with regards to the plastic treaty. We are all hoping that there would be some kind of binding agreement addressing plastic challenge. But being there, that was about half a year ago in May, I noticed that there is a little discussion with regards to the positive examples, and I thought it would be a very good idea to highlight and address already existing solutions. And I would like to start today with deposit system for beverage containers. On this slide, you can see three photographs. In the center, we see two persons. One is, or was, because now he is a pensioner, director of the Swedish deposit system, so the oldest the oldest European deposit system for single-use beverage containers. He is handing over the plastic bottle to the director of the recycling facility. And we can say that exactly under the same roof, the magic happens. The plastic bottles, 90% of plastic bottles collected in Sweden are given or sold, sorry, it's not for free, to the recycler. And this recycler has a little tiny contract provision, namely he has to offer the right of first refusal to the Swedish local producers. Thanks to this, from the bottles that you can see on the right-hand side, the new bottles are produced in Sweden. And we have had this practice since 2009. And we will look into the details today. Beverage containers are particular packaging fraction. There is a lot of them. We are talking hundreds of units per capita and year in Europe. You will look into the presentations of Norwegian system operator and Slovak system operator. For Norway, it's approximately 300 plastic bottles and aluminum cans per year based on market in that country. For Slovakia, it's about 185. Slovakia is not as rich as Norway in terms of GDP. However, if you compare the GDP, it's 4 times as higher in Norway. But if you compare the number of the containers for beverages, the difference is much, much lower. So you can see that the quantities of this type of packaging is huge. I can hear some sounds. Can you still hear me well? Okay, I can get some confirmation. Thank you so much. The second challenge with the beverage containers, of course, linked to the quantities, is a volume. It takes up to 40% of the space of the bins, be it bins for the liter items, of the items that we would like to discard being in public space, or the liters in the curbside collection, so waste collection from the households. If deposit system is not in place, then obviously they would take a lot of space, and they would take a lot of space also during the transportation of the waste fractions between the households and the aggregated collection facilities. The third challenge with the beverage containers is the risk for litter. As we know, 80% of the littered items consist of beverage containers of food vessels. So on one hand, we have a lot of those plastic bottles and metal cans. obviously also the glass bottles. And on the other hand, we also have a solution that has been implemented in many countries. Actually, we know DRS for many decades. We have known that all over the world. Everyone who is as old as me remembers the times when we went to the shop, bought beverage, and normally it was sold in a glass bottle. We paid the deposit and we got it back when we returned. So exactly that method of collection just had been used by producers for many years for a guarantee to return, to get the beverage containers, glass containers returned, was adopted for single-use containers. And for the first time, it was done in Europe, in Sweden in 1984. I would like to also point out that DRS is a fantastic role model for extended producer responsibility. What is extended producer responsibility? Essentially, it is financial responsibility of those actors, economic actors, who place the containers on the market. And in deposit systems, producers of beverages pay the full cost. It is also a nice example of the system where the net cost coverage principle is adopted. We know that this is part of the minimum requirements for extended producer responsibility within the Waste Framework Directive. We can also see that a co-modulation of fees for the packaging types has led to eco-design. Currently, European Union is discussing the implementation of the provisions related to the obligatory circularity, recyclability of packaging in deposit systems in Europe. That has been the case for many decades. Packages that are not recyclable are not allowed on the market. So essential requirements are already there. Eco-modulation is also there, which of course gives benefits to the packaging types that are better for recycling. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, example from Sweden, if you compare to the prices to the clear PET, this colored PET is more expensive. And last and most important for today is deposit system as circular economy best practice. In order to achieve circular economy, we have to maximize the collection. And we know that within deposit systems, we achieve 90%. We also know that circular economy requires lower carbon footprint, or as possible, low carbon footprint. And we know, thanks to the Norwegian expertise, also similar expertise has been done in Czech Republic of the system for the collection of beverage containers based on deposit is not yet implemented there, that collection methodology based on deposit, based on the fact that citizens, consumers go back to the shop and return the containers there, is much better for climate. Logically, I myself go to the shop, and also in the shop the package is devalued, compacted, which translates into the lower carbon footprint. Today, we are aware of the fact that this is also the best solution for beverage packaging in terms of circularity. As I mentioned, in Sweden, where I live today, 50% of the bottles that are placed on the market are based on the recycled content. So we have 50%, at least 50% of the old bottles into the new bottles that are sold. And with this, I would like to give floor to Kjell Olav Maldum from Infinitum.
Just show like this. We can see the presentation. It's okay. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. I will talk about the setup in Norway and give you some insight in how we run the system in Norway. First of all, Infinitum is a private-owned company. We like to call it a value chain company because the tax authority in Norway, they look upon Infinitum as the producer's extended producer responsibility. So we are responsible to take care of the packaging material when it's empty from the consumer. Owned 50-50 by producer and retailers, started in May 1999, but we have had DRS in Norway all along, at least since 1902. We have around 1.7 billion cans in PET bottle, 23,000 tons of PET. We could supply about 80% recycled content in all PET bottles today. This year, we have 50% recycled content in average for all the PET bottles. Next year, the forecast is 60% recycled in all PET bottles in Norwegian market. We also have around 13,000 tons of aluminium. So therefore, we say that we operate a material pool system for aluminium and PET. When the beverage industry uses all of our materials, a reusable system with the lowest environmental impact. We also go public with our figures. So we document what's the sales, and then we look into the value chain and see that you actually have a higher figure. And this is based on the shifted from year to year, based on big bottle, small bottle, and so on. So you see that the figure for PET bottle is actually higher than for the sale. Then we have what's documented, collected through reverse vending machine, registered on the barcode and shape, 92% of the PET bottle. And in addition, so that's the deposit rate. We also document what's coming to household garbage, because we have been looking for what's happening with empties that not put into the reverse vending machine. And luckily, we find most of it inside the household garbage. So we are reporting almost 99% for the cans and 98% for the PET bottle that we have control over. So we have a small amount of littering, but it's very low. And for us, this is important. Of course, we would like to get everything into the reverse vending machine, but then we work with habits, make the system even more efficient and easy for the consumer to deliver the empties back. But then it's very important to know where the empties are. That's not put into the reverse vending machine. We also go public with these figures, so it's easy to check what we achieve, and that's increase our credibility towards the consumer. And we measure this and see that this is very important. I know my colleague from Slovakia, later he will show you a little bit lower figure, but he just started up, so within a year he will be more or less at the same level, and that's very interesting to see the development they have there as well. We also have this model the same as in Sweden. So we have a base EPR cost, the producer, except producer responsibility cost is negative for aluminium. We pay for every can they put in. This is for the PET, is around 0.014. And then we have, if you have a light blue, you have base plus light blue, or you can have base plus colored. You can have a sleeve on the can, then you have to pay because you put some organic material in the aluminium. And then if you have more than 80% recycled content, you have to pay because that will deteriorate the material over time. So we don't want to have more than 80%. That's the most efficient. And also we have additional cost if you are outside the limits of crystallinity. That will say the quality of the PET material. PET is not PET. And we have done a lot of study on this for the last couple of years. But this principle is the polluter pays. The more efficient the material is to recycle, the better yield we have in the recycling process, the less cost for the producer. I also have to point out this. There's a lot of report now about reuse. And then they say that single-use system, as you see here, the waste and recycling are put into the same bubble. We say that it's important, actually, the recycling, then you put the material back into the loop, and it's not a single-use system. We run a recyclable, reusable system because the material is used again and again in a closed loop. And as I said, next year we will achieve at least 60% recycled content from the Norwegian market back into Norwegian bottles. And that will go up to 80% within a couple of years. So then we really are efficient system. To achieve this, it's very important to have design for recycling. So we have had that since the start in 1999. So we check the label, glue, cap material, and everything that is actually efficient to dismantle and to recycle. The yield in the recycling process is a very efficient and important factor when you are working with the system. Of course, you have a special advantage when you have a DRS, since you can control what you allow into the reverse vending machine, as we can do in Norway. So then we have a system, and we have cover all the costs around the system, since we are an EPR system, producer responsibility system. So we pay the shop handling fee, so they can invest and run the reverse vending machine. We have all the logistics into our hubs, logistic hub, into our sorting and baling plant, and transport to the recycler. So it's a 100% producer responsibility system. This is just to mention, this is an old-fashioned reusable system that's now discussed in Europe. This is a small producer in Norway, and as you can see that the area for the factory and the area for storing empties, crates, and so on is the same. So it's a huge amount of area you need to run all-time reusable system. This is a typical backroom in the shop. You see that this takes a lot of space. Today is in average 1.5 square meter of empties when you run with a recyclable system that we have. The reason is that the machine count the units by shape and barcode, compacted into a bag, and most of the volume, and this goes for most of the Nordic market, that most of the material is delivered back to a grocery store with the reverse vending machine. But in Norway, we are obliged to pick up from every outlet. So if you have a small kiosk, gasoline station, tourist huts up in the mountain, voluntary organization, we also pick up empties from their areas. It's a small amount in numbers, but we have a lot of small pickup points. But we have to handle this, and this is included in all overall cost. We also set up a solution for e-commerce company. So when you sell, you deliver on the doorstep, beverage and grocery, and then you are obliged to take back the empties. So we also take that into our system, count, and pay out a deposit to the e-commerce that will withdraw that when they pay out to the consumer, their customer. We have also been working with the efficiency in the logistics. So instead of using bag, if you have a shop with high volume, then you can actually run the material directly from the reverse vending machine into hook lift containers. So then we can increase the efficiency even more and have a high frequency and very efficient setup for the RVM inside the shop. As I mentioned, we are obliged to pick up from all of Norway. So we have 3 plants for the time being, and we are now setting up our 4th plant on the southeast of Norway. So then we'll have 4 plants to cover the whole country. And this is a setup based on the logistics setup in Norway. We have a long, narrow country and rather few people, so we have to work with the efficiency all along, because the logistic is costly, but when you can run it cost efficient, you also reduce the environmental impact for the setup. In addition, we have also set up system for beer kegs, draft master that Carlsberg have produced. We have set up a solution for festival cups. PET festival cups is efficient to take in and recycle together with the bottles. Then you get rid of the littering issue with festival concert, and we can recycle the material back into new cups and bottles. In Norway, we have also wine and spirit on in the deposit system on PET bottle and cans. And we also set up a deposit solution for key keg and poly keg, the competitor of a Carlsberg solution. So we take it into our plant, dismantle, and recycle the valuable material. As I mentioned, we have the efficiency increase, this new RVM that Tom is making, that you can empty a full bag of empties. It's very efficient for the consumer, and then we work with efficiency on the back side of the RVM to get material into our system. And in average, it takes less than 48 hours from the consumer deposit a bottle in a shop in Norway till it run through our factory. It takes 10 minutes to sort and bale material through our factory at Heia. And we have the same setup as they have in Sweden. The recycler is next door. So when we ship it into there, and since we have all the data from the reverse vending machine, the recycler in Norway, they don't have any incoming storage. We supply them with a fixed tonnage every day, year around. And then the material go through their factory. They use around 16 hours to recycle the material to make the pellets, food grade pellets, that they will ship to the preform producer. The preform producer, for the time being, they are in Sweden, so we have to ship the material there. But in total, you can actually get hold of the material within 80 hours from the consumer delivered it. And this, we also think it's important when you talk about sustainability and circularity. It's important to see how fast can you get the material that's been used back into the loop for the next trip. So it's all about the efficiency in the logistics to get material back. you can say that when we use 23,000 tons of PET, if we manage to turn the material 10 times a year, you can run the same sales of beverage with only 2,300 tons of material. So that's important. Then we are talking about reducing the use of plastic, but not reducing the thickness of the plastic in the bottle. Then we have efficient, good quality material, good quality bottles, and we reuse the material in an efficient way. When you're reporting, it's important to look at the mass balance. How much are put on the market and how much are you collecting and how much can you recycle? So the yield in the recycling process gives us the mass balance. And then we say around 80-85% of the material is possible to run back. For the timing, we see that 80% is the maximum if we would like to keep the material in good quality as well. This is LCA study done from the wine monopoly. We have a special setup in Norway and Sweden regarding wine and spirit. You have to go to specific shops to buy that. But they looked into the CO2 emission for the packaging, and they found that if you run with a glass bottle, it's 675 grams per liter sold of beverage. You can have a lightweight glass bottle. A PET bottle that's go to incineration is 245 grams per liter. Then you have an aluminium can without deposit, pouches, Tetra Pak, bag-in-box. But if you have a PET bottle with a 90% collection or deposit rate and 80% recycled, you are down to 30 sold. And this shows that plastic is still very efficient. It's a fantastic material, but you have to collect and recycle in an efficient way and keep the material in the loop. So we have to continue to use plastic, but we need to get all countries to set up efficient collection systems so you can get the material back into the loop. So that was the infinitum system in brief. So thank you so far, and I'll join to the discussion later on as well.
So now I would like to introduce the next speaker from Slovakia, Marián Áč, the CEO of the Slovak deposit system operator, not as old as Norwegian one, 2-year-old. But already showing fantastic results. Marián, the floor is yours.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to share our success story in Slovakia of the DRS. Okay, so I have more slides than Kjell, but so I would like to be I would go quicker maybe through some slides. So first of all, what was the main intention why we introduced the DRS in Slovakia? Based on the studies which was done in Slovakia before the DRS, 60% of the plastic bottles were collected within the standard regular separate containers. And the target which we want to reach is 90%. By law, it's 90% by 2025. Of course, as it was already mentioned, the added value or surplus of the DRS system is not only the collection rate, but also the quality of the material and littering, which almost disappeared in Slovakia. We are receiving quite a nice feedback from the cities, but also from the national parks and so forth. So this is the path, let's say, how the DRS was introduced in Slovakia. As you can see, it's not so easy to prepare and to start the system. The first act was approved, passed the parliament in September 29. It was, I think, 2 times updated, and in February 21, our company received the license to run the business. So we are the only company who is, let's say, who has the right to run DRS in Slovakia, based on the let's say approval of our Ministry of Environment. So we are in operation as of the 1st of January 22. So the company had only 10 months for the preparation of all the system. Of course, it was quite a short time, which caused some troubles definitely at the beginning and the startup of the system. But now we are almost 2 years in the operation, and it's much better from this perspective. So a few words regarding the administrator as such. So we are a non-profit organization founded by the industry members, producers, and retailers. We have, let's say, the board of directors, which is created by the representative of producers. The idea behind is that the producers are financing the system, so at the end they are also managing the system. And then we have the supervisory board. In the supervisory board there are also retailers, and the state has 3 representatives and general manager, who is my person. Here you can see also our trademark, which we are using, or symbol at all the packages which are under the DRS system. Here you can see, let's say, the owners or founders of the company, of the administrator. There are two associations of the retailers. The Samod on the left side is more the international retailers, like big retail chains. The second one is more created by the small or let's say the local retailers. And then we have two associations. The first is the association of the water or soft drink, mineral waters and juices producers, and the second one are the beer producers. Within this association, almost 80% of the market which is presented in Slovakia is covered. Okay, the financing of the administrator is quite a standard, as in most of the countries, which is the uncollected deposit. At the beginning, it's very important for the administrator for the start to have enough resources. If you have a higher collection, you have lower income from the uncollected deposit, so you are paying more or less for the success. Then, of course, the producer's fees, which is the main source for the future and should finance the system if it is in the deficit. And then, of course, the selling of the material, the owner of the material is the DRS operator. Here is, let's say, the deposit system. How does it work? It's a quite complex system. Probably you know. I won't go through all the, let's say, parts, but as you can see, the DRS operator is in the middle of everything and has, let's say, the obligation to manage the system. The relationships between the parties involved, starting with the retailers through the producers, and of course, at the end, the customers, and also from the, let's say, ID system, from the, let's say, legal system point of view, you need to manage also a little bit the state, because the ministry are changing regularly. So during my 1 year in the company is already the third minister in the office who I have to deal with the DRS system. Okay, so a little bit about the material. As you can see, Slovak DRS system doesn't have the glass in the system, which we are quite happy with that. So we have, let's say, the cans or metal, so it's aluminium and then the plastic, where you can see the material. Of course, most of the cans or some metal is the can. Let's say, from the volume point of view, it's 0.1 to 3 liter inclusive. For example, milk is included, or all the let's say products milk base are excluded, and also then the alcohol, which exceeded 15% in the content. Okay, the deposit as such is 15 cents. We don't distinguish size, we don't distinguish the material. The deposit is always the same. From my perspective, it's very good for the customer. At the end, also for the administrator, because it's simple from a data management point of view, but also it's easy understandable also for the customers that do not have to distinguish the deposit size when they are returning or buying the products. Okay, deposit cycle, probably you know, but deposit, in case the cycle is working properly, it's non-income for everybody. So if all the bottles are returned, then of course the deposit is just the motivation for the consumers to return the container. From the, let's say, size of the market, as you can see, we are having in the system almost 1.2 billion of the containers, something between 1.1 to 1.2 billion, where 44% of all the material are cans, and approximately 56% of the material are PET bottles. The collection rate, so these are the targets or KPIs which we have in the law. So we need to, let's say, fulfill. If not, of course, the company will pay some fines, which then we, of course, have to distribute to the producers within the fees. So let's say during the first year, the target was 60%. At the end of the year, we calculated 72 collection rate. So we exceeded this collection rate. But of course, the first year, it's quite difficult to judge or evaluate the collection rate, because there is some kind of let's say, postponement with the sale, and then with the usage of the container, and at the end also the return of the container. So these are our, let's say, legal requirements. Here you can see the development of the real return rate or collection rate as of the August 23. So based on the data we have currently, it looks like that this year we will reach the collection rate at the level of the 90%, which is really a nice success. We are really happy, which somehow shows that the system is working properly. The negative, as I mentioned already, is that the income from the unrepaid deposit is much lower than we expected. So the fees of the producers were increased this year, which they were not so happy because of that. But of course, they couldn't complain because this is, let's say, the price of the success we are having in the collection rate. So very shortly, producers, what they have to do. So first of all, they have to conclude a contract with the administrator. They have to put on the labels all the necessary, let's say, signs, barcodes in the standard and quality which we are expecting. So the beverage, so the containers are readable at the RVMs and so forth. They have to keep, let's say, separate accounting for the deposit and for the price of the product. What I can mention, which is maybe important and not in the presentation, the deposit in Slovakia is not VAT charged. Okay, a little bit about the recycling and not only recycling, but let's say circularity as such. So we are trying, or let's say the setup of the system as of the beginning was with the idea to increase the pad-to-pad or can-to-can approach as much as possible. So in Slovakia, we have a maybe a little bit specific approach as an auction right for the producers. So as you know, as of the 25th, at least 25% of all material used for, let's say, the production of the containers has to be or will be necessary to have 25% of the recycled material. From this perspective, our producers are really interested to let's say, get the material from the DRS system because the material is very clean, and which of course is also very good for the recycling companies. So we are, let's say, having two types how we are selling the material. The first and the preferred type is to sell the material directly to the producers. So the producer who is putting the products in the Slovak market has the right to buy, let's say, the appropriate portion of the material which we are gathering. It's based on the fair share basis, meaning so how much material he's putting on the market, that's the share he can also apply for the material from the DRS operator. As you can see, when we started in 22 with this option right is the right of the producers, it's not the obligation. We reached almost 50% of the material which was sold directly to the producers. In this case, the producers are let's say, declaring and giving us a guarantee that this material is used for the production of the beverages again, of all the containers again. This year, it's just projection. Maybe it will be a little bit higher, I hope. But as you can see, the number almost doubled. And we are, let's say, targeting the 80%, at least in the PET, but also in the aluminium, where the producers, let's say, increased the interest. And most of the producers, maybe the big producers, are interested with the material. They would like maybe also buy more. But of course, we need to somehow follow this fair share basis. We would like to continue with this approach because in this case, we are somehow securing the pad-to-pad or can-to-can principle. The second possibility, or let's say way how we are selling, so the rest of the material which is not applied by the auction right, we are selling directly to the recycling companies. In this case, the recycling company has to guarantee only that the material will be recycled. So there is no obligation to use it again for the containers, but it has to be declared or let's say confirmed that it will be recycled. So all the material which we are, let's say, gathering and managing is recycled at the end, and almost 70% in alu and 80% in the PET for this year will be used within the circular economy principle. Okay, so a little bit regarding some kind of legal obligation, how it works in Slovakia from the retail point of view. So there is the legal obligation that all the shops or distributors who are selling the products and the stores with the sales area more than 300 square meters have to be involved in the system, and they have to gather the containers. So the sale, or let's say the shops with the sales area lower than 300 is not obligatory, it's just voluntary. We have three types of, let's say, ways how we are collecting the material. The first is the fully automated collection, so the RVMs. Then we have some semi-automated collections which we are using more from some specific occasions like festivals or big employers and so forth. And then we have this manual collection where the scanners are used, and this is for the small shops where the investment to the RVM is a little bit problem. Here is just example of some of our RVMs. As you can see, some of them are outside on the parking places, but most of them are within the retail store premises. And on the right side, you can see, let's say, our hand scanner, which we are using in the small shops. The equipment also with the software is fully managed and supplied by the administrator, so the retailers do not have to care. They just receive the package and they can start to collect. Here you can see the alternative collection points. As I mentioned already, we are, let's say, present also in a lot of specific occasions and places where we are trying to, let's say, gather the material, but also present the system as such, which is very important for the young generation, like the sports centers, schools, aqua parks or festivals, where we are trying, let's say, somehow spread our idea and the main principles of the DRS system. One of our, let's say, a specific project which we started this summer in cooperation with our national parks. As you know, Slovakia is a quite small country, but we have a lot of national parks where a lot of tourists are coming also from abroad. So we started the cooperation with our national parks where we somehow prepared for them a special kind of collection points. This is a voluntary collection, so the customers are not receiving the deposit back, so it's some kind of donation to the national parks. And as maybe probably you know, we have also a lot of bears in Slovakia, so our container was tested also with the bear, so it's fine to have it also in the nature. Okay, so a little bit some words spent regarding the process of the system. So in Slovakia, the stores are obliged to buy the technology, so the retailers have to buy the RVMs. So they are responsible for the RVMs as such, not only for the investment, but also of the management of the RVMs, to clean it, to have it ready for collection. The task of the DRS operator starts at the pickup. So we are, let's say, gathering the material. Then we have 6 internal warehouses within the Slovakia where we are transferring this material. We are pressing it more. So the logistic, as Kjell mentioned, is very important, not only from the cost perspective, but also from the CO2 production perspective. So even more you are able to put into the track, even let's say less you spend money and produce the CO2. So the compacting and of course also the pressing is very important. And then we have one sorting center. We have only one center in Slovakia, which is located in the Kočovce, Rakulubi. Here you can see the map and also the locations of the interim warehouses. And in the sorting center, we are, let's say, sorting the PET material based on the colors, and can is cleaned and also pressed, of course, as much as possible. Production capacity of our line. So this is in the Kočovce, our production line. So the sorting capacity of the PET line is 4.5 ton per hour, and for the CAD line is approximately 2.5 ton per hour. Quality of the material, as I mentioned, also Kjell mentioned, it's very important, the quality of the material which is going out of the DRS system. So in the can material, we are, let's say, guaranteeing 95% of the cleanness. In the PET, we are guaranteeing 93% of the cleanness, meaning that it's in the PET mainly, it's not that there is another material, but it's 90%, 93% of the purity considering the color. So let's say there is always 93% of the transparent, blue or green. And then we have 2 additional colors, which is the light mix and the dark mix. Okay, so this is some kind of development of our sorting line. As you can see at the beginning of the system, it was not so easy to manage the line in the proper way, because also the people, also the technology was quite new. So now we are, let's say, using more or less the full capacity of the line, and we are happy with that, because we are able to manage all the material which is going through the DRS system. This is more or less for the can. As you can see, also the numbers, let's say, increased, and the productivity of the lines during the second year is much higher than it was in the last year. Some data regarding the DRS system. So we have 3,243 collection points. The number is still increasing, but now we are, let's say, more receiving the small shops, because all the big players are already in a game. We have contracts with almost 310 retailers and 330 producers in the system, and we are managing approximately 4,500 EN codes. From the mandatory collection point, as you can see, I mentioned already, it's 300 square meter is the minimum for the mandatory, but on the other hand, more than 64% of our collection points are voluntarily. So the collection points, let's say, entered the system on the voluntary basis. From my perspective, is mainly because of the competition, because of course, if you are selling the product, the customer is also expecting that you are gathering the product from him. If not, of course, he can choose another shop. Collection types, 74% are automated collection points, so with the RVMs, and 26% are with the hand scanners. On the other hand, more than 95% is going through the RVMs. So most of the material is going through the RVMs, which for the administrator, of course, is better, because first of all, you have compacted material when you are gathering for the first time, which again is, let's say, is more efficient from the logistic point of view. On the other hand, of course, also the fraudulent action is much more minimized within the automatic and compacted solution. Some data, this is as of the first half of the 23. As you can see, the numbers are still growing. I showed you the numbers as of the August, so the return rate is still growing, and we are waiting what will be the final number as of the end of this year. These are some comprehensive statistics for 22. We don't have it prepared for 23. We will finalize as of the end of the year, so you can see just for the last year, comparing, let's say, the total tons of the material which was put on the market, which was, let's say, processed by the administrator, and at the end also then recycled or sold to the recycling companies or the producers. I won't spend, let's say, more word on that. Littering, I mentioned already. I'm sure that also other DRS are quite intensively checking the let's say, the way how it is working in the on the side of the customers. So some research which we are doing, and this research is really showing us very positive numbers. First of all, and very important for the inhabitants, for the population as such, is littering, because this is something which they can really see, you know. So because you can talk about the recycling, you can talk about the circularity, but at the end, the people usually appreciate mainly if they can see something, and what they can see that these material which are under the DRS system that almost disappeared from the nature, from the streets of the cities and the villages. Also, customer satisfaction. This is also very nice, and we are happy with this, that the Slovak people somehow accepted the system. Of course, the start of the system was not so easy. There were a lot of troubles, but now we are running smoothly. Also, the customers are habitual with the system. They know how to use the RVMs. Also, the retailers, of course, and the employees of the retailers are much more advanced now with this. And as you can see, the customer satisfaction as such is quite high, is more or less stable, and we will be happy if it also remains in the future in this manner. And that's everything from my side. Of course, if you have any questions, I'm ready here for you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions. I could see a lot in the Q&A. I would like to remind our participants that it is possible to ask questions also in chat. Some of you probably do not have Zoom application type, and then the Q&A is disabled. I would think so. So you can also raise the question in chat, and I will look into this communication line as well. But before we go into the Q&A, I would like to invite Marián Áč, Director General, UNEP Poland, Kjell Olav Maldum again from Infinitum, Ole Myhre from also from Norway, Polymer Institute, and Marián Áč is still with us. Maria, as we are 1 week before the third meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, some government representatives and observers are packing the suitcases now because it's in South Africa. So I would like to ask you about the context and the global crisis, why it is needed for the representatives of all countries of the world to meet and address the plastic.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for invitation, and it's a pleasure to participate in this webinar today. So the plastic treaty, well, it deals only with plastic. So this is the whole process is not reaching to other types of litters or pollution, but that's focus on plastic. And this is the issue is coming from the, let's say, huge environmental pollution, which is observed in many places all over the globe. Because we know that plastic is an extremely valuable material, and in fact it's difficult even to imagine the future without plastic. So we have to focus on keeping the plastic in the economy, but so not allowing to pollute the environment. There are some data which show that the process the problem, the challenge is bigger and bigger, because the global plastic production and consumption has grown exponentially since 1950s. And right now, at this moment, the annual global production is projected to reach around 450 million tons by 2025. In the UN reports, we can read that in less than 70 years, a total of 9.2 billion tons of plastic have been produced. That's the accumulated amount. Approximately 6.3 billion tons of plastic waste were generated. And from these 6.3 billion tons of plastic waste, only 9% were recycled. That's not only related to the beverage containers, but the plastic beverage containers, but to the whole amount of plastic which we are using in our economy. So 9% was recycled, 12% was incinerated, and 79% was collected in landfills or in natural environment in many places all over the globe. So with the current trends in waste production and management continue, approximately 12 billion tons of plastic waste will end up in landfills or in the natural environment by 2050. There are some environmental costs, quite serious environmental costs, because it's estimated that 11 million metric tons of plastic enter the ocean every year from land-based sources alone. So these are extremely huge amounts, and there is that's very extremely important to stop this plastic pollution. And in fact, this is not only about pollution, because we are losing materials, we are losing the energy which was used for the production, in the whole production process. So that's why the plastic treaty is so much focused on keeping the plastic in the economy. Of course, our European experiences are quite important for the whole process, because this is also in the zero draft of the plastic treaty. It also refers to this type of processes as we have here in Europe, like the EPR, for example. So the problem is even bigger, because plastic is not only responsible for pollution of the environment, but it's also responsible for the production of greenhouse gases at every stage of their life cycle. So that's like at this moment, more than 99% of plastics are made from chemicals derived from oil, natural gas, and coal. The situation, if the situation remains, so then in 2050, the plastic industry could account for 20% of total oil and gas consumption, which means huge cost for the industry in environmental fees, but also huge cost for the environment. So there are also data on global warming and on the contribution of plastic production to the global warming. But the most important is that the process of creation of the plastic treaty has started. We will have in just a few days, we'll have the third meeting of INC, and we are expecting to have the plastic treaty available by the end of 2024 to, let's say, minimize in a maximum way the problem of plastic pollution by 2040. I think that's enough maybe for the introduction, because I see that the time is running, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Very pessimistic data, but as the CEO of Reloop Platform says, Clarissa Moravsky, if we have a destination, we need to also know where we are. So it's very important to map the current challenges in order to understand how and from what position we can move forward. I would like now to ask a question to Ole-Jan Myhre. Ole-Jan Myhre represents Norner, as I mentioned earlier. Norner plays with plastic, I can say so. You do a lot of tricks and warm plastic up, and you have lots of extruders and all those machines. I have been to your facility, very interesting. I know also that Norner does a lot of projects with regards to the plastic recyclability. So in a way, you are a plastic fantast, we can say so. And I would like to now create the link to the topic of today's webinar. You have observed the plastic packaging in Nordic market. You could see the differences between plastic beverage packaging, so the plastic bottles, and other plastic packaging. What is the situation now, if you could compare?
Well, if you look at the beverage in the first place, like Kjell Olav and Marián have been presenting, beverage is unique packaging in the terms that they are, let's say, quite standardized in shape, and it's a quite standard or easy way to understand the market, and it can be easily put into a vending machine. When you look at, first of all the other materials used for packaging, or the other, which is basically polyethylene, polypropylene, and polystyrene, the total amount of material of these, and particularly PP and PE, is very much higher than the PET bottles. It's also much wider range of formats, shapes. It's thermoform trays, it's injection molded cups, it's flexible packaging, PE, PP, everything from a chocolate bar wrapping to a yogurt cup to whatever it might be, everything. So it's, of course, very much more complexity in terms of understanding how we could possibly collect and recycle consumer food packaging apart from the beverage. And then comes, of course, additional to this of the complication of the recycling technologies and how they can be approved to generate a material which is again food approved, which is also not at the moment non-existing. It's basically in the EU for the moment, basically the PET beverage recycling, which is food approved. If you have a mono PET tray, that can also be recycled because of the PET recycling technology and the PET material. And otherwise, for polyolefins, PMPP, it's basically the closed loop, let's say, a transportation crates, which is in the loops that you can recycle back to food contact crates and for the same application. There's a huge volume out there, which is not possible to recycle, at least not back to food packaging. And then if you look at, there are many other, let's say, variations in the whole game, because if you look at, let's say, take just polyethylene film, for example, or polyethylene-based films, for the household, a lot of the polyethylene film is combined with other materials today. So they are PE with PET, PE with polyamide, PE with the polypropylene, or all three of them, or PE with aluminum, PET, etc., etc. So there are these complex laminates which are not recyclable, and that's again showing all the complexity of the packaging materials. But then now we have heard about the PPVR and the targets, and probably they are going to be implemented within the next couple of years. Then the target is, and the regulation will dictate that all packaging must be recyclable, which means technically recyclable. That implies that all these complex laminates and multi-layer structures have to be drastically simplified. The rumors or the indications say that PPVR in Europe says that it's not possible, it's not allowed to have non-recyclable packaging put onto the market after 2030, which is posing a dramatic change for the whole packaging industry, and particularly the food packaging industry in Europe, because they have been depending on long shelf life alternatives, so flexible packaging with various barrier materials, even alufoil laminates, and so on and so forth. So that's a major challenge. So I think to conclude, my comment at this stage is that you cannot really compare so many other packages to the beverage. Beverage is a unique opportunity in a way to really recycle a quite homogeneous format in a very technically good manner. You can do the same probably, and I've been advocating that in Norway sometimes. Maybe there are some other formats that also could be put into a vending machine return system. PET trays, or generally trays, could be another format that could be taken into such machines. Then you have the complexity that they are probably used for fish packaging and meat packaging and chicken packaging, so they're contaminated with stuff from animals and the danger of not having things hygienically in good shape at the shops and all those kind of things. So it's more challenging. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ole Jan. Yeah, beverage packaging is in a way easier, but on the other hand, my reflection would be that there were and still are in Europe some beverage containers that are not recyclable, for example, because of the thermocontractable PVC labels. And deposit systems have been so good systems in a way that prevented the lack of the recyclability. To my knowledge, there is no system now that allows the packaging formats that are not possible to be recycled. So in a way, I would agree that this is better format. It's more standardized. On the other hand, I think the fact that deposit systems have been implementation of extended producer responsibility to 100% because producers covered the cost also has resulted with some solutions, and the packages specifications that have enabled not only recycling actually, but also circularity. I would like to ask now Kjell Olav about the recyclability issue. We know that the total circularity of in the world is estimated to be 7.5%. For Norway, this data is more pessimistic, namely 2.4. So in total, Norway is 2.4% recyclable and circular. Can you remind us the data you presented at your slides with regards to this possibility for beverage packaging circularity in Norway?
Yeah, I can do. Just a comment, because in this report stating that we only have 2.7% recyclability in Norway, then we are building a lot of new buildings. And the country that come very high in these figures, they are tearing down building and recycle and set them up again. But for the time being, we are not tearing down buildings. We are only building new. That's why the figure is very low for Norwegian. But if you looked into the packaging material, we have a collection of old material in Norway from the municipality and so on. But the recycling process is not that efficient when it comes to municipality waste handling system. So they are too low, and they are looking into new solution, how to get the material from the household garbage into the recycling process. But the figure for infinitum, as I showed you, that we have 92% deposit rate. So that will say that we have control of 92% of the bottle put on the market. That's go directly into the recycling process. And then you have the yield in the recycling process. So then we can supply about 80+% of recycled content in all bottles. And the same go for aluminium cans. We are at the same level for aluminium cans. So that's the system we have today. And as I showed you to this year, we are at 50% recycled content in the Norwegian bottle. Next year, we will reach 60+%. And that will say that all the Norwegian producer, they want to get the material back, and they have the same fair share and offer first refusal as in Slovakia. So they get hold of Norwegian material. And of course, they would like to use that material because that's very good quality material. So that's a situation for them. Beverage packaging. And then I also would like to comment, because we also see now that there's a lot of other type of packaging in the grocery store that you can take into some kind of DRS system. So I think that will be the development as well. We need to collect more of the plastic in closed, efficient loops so we can reuse the material in an efficient way. And that will come for the next year to come.
Interesting insights. Thank you very much. And the difference, obviously, between the total circularity number for Norway and your impressive 50 and going into 60 is huge. Marián, I would like to ask you, you live in a country and lead economic operator, deposit system operator in Slovakia. Slovakia is not as rich as Norway. I checked the GDP today per capita, just 25% of the Norwegian. Are the solutions targeting plastic circularity reserved for rich north? What can you say based on your experiences so far in Slovakia?
Sorry,
can we tackle the plastic crisis?
What do you mean rich north?
Yeah, sorry, that's the maybe UNEP terminology. Yeah, rich countries.
But what, from which perspective you mean? From the collection perspective?
Is it? Yeah, exactly. Are the solutions like deposit systems reserved for the countries that have money to invest them, or can they be deployed elsewhere?
Okay, so I will try to answer. So from my perspective, it's not so important the GDP per capita and so forth. That's the investment into the system. Okay, we use the loan, we are repaying the loan, so it's not such a big issue. What is important is the volume of the material, of course. So comparing to Norway, for example, we have more or less the same population, and they have 3 times more material in the system. Of course, the economies of scale is working also in the DRS system. So you need to have almost the same technology. You need to have almost the same number of people. So even material you have in the system, even let's say more efficient you are. So from this perspective, we would be happy if our let's say customers will use more the containers and more the products, because then we will have more products within the system. At the end, yeah, it's very important, difficult to compare also to Norway, because the DRS system there is running for years, for decades. So I'm sure that from the efficiency point of view, they are much more advanced as we are after 2 years. So also on the cost side and cost efficiency side, we have still what to do, and this will be also very important for us for the next year to concentrate on the processes and on the cost efficiency, which will at the end also somehow will be shown in the industry fees of our producers. But what I can say, for example, the can material is already self-financed for this year. We calculated that the can is already self-financed, so the can producers will have really a symbolic fee. We will charge a fee just to have a fee, but it's really a symbolic fee. But for the PET material, for the first 2 years, I would say that it's quite high, but I'm sure that we will be able to lower it next year, because we will also have more efficient operational processes within the company.
Thank you very much. That's the net cost principle we discussed, right? And no cross-subsidizing. So every fraction, like plastic and metal, has to pay for itself. Let's move into the questions from the audience. I would like to thank you very much, all the panelists, Marián and Kjell Olav and Maria Oleanmere, for joining us today. As you can see, it is quite dark in Europe, especially we can see that in the office of Marián. So I would start saying goodbye for today, and you are already welcome to participate in our webinars next year. We will continue with Deep Dive European DRS. We will start with Deep Dive European EPR, and we will continue with the circular plastic now, as we would like to address positive message and the solutions that have been implemented already and are successful. So let's stay optimistic. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much to the admin and technical team for the support. And I'm looking forward to meeting you next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.